Today, I want to have a conversation on losing interest in foods that you once used to binge on. Losing interest in foods that you once thought I'd never be able to control myself around. Whether this is bread, chocolate cake, ice cream, sweets, pizza, whatever food it is that you feel like I can't control myself around this certain food. Whether you feel like I am always going to binge on ice cream. If I have pizza, I am always going to spiral out of control. Whether it's sweets, it's bread, it's pasta, whatever it is, I want to share with you how to make peace with these foods and how to get to a point where you don't even have the desire to even eat them anymore. This has happened to myself around sweets, my chocolate chip pancakes, around dried mangoes, coconut clusters. This has been the same for my clients. I had a client that was like, chocolate cake. I cannot stop having chocolate cake. As soon as I have chocolate cake, I always binge on it. Hi, Leah. Leah. Hello. Whether it is, one of my clients, for her, it was bread. She's like, fresh bread is everything. I can't just have one or two slices. Like, I just go to town with fresh bread. I had another client where she was like, ice cream. I don't know if I'll ever make peace with ice cream. And so whatever food you feel like you're spiraling out of control with, I want to share with you how to take those foods off of a pedestal and how to be able to enjoy them and literally lose interest in them. So I'm first going to share an example for myself. So for me, it was, I have a sweet tooth, okay? I have a really big sweet tooth. And there got to a point where I would eat very healthy all day. I'd pack my meals to go to work. I would eat all the delicious meals that I packed. And then I would come home from work and I would automatically go to town on sweets. At the time, I was living with my parents, and my mom would make these delicious chocolate almond butter bars. They were so good. My mom would make these almond flour chocolate chip cookies. They were so good. There was always some type of sweets in the house. Now, I love eating healthy. My parents enjoyed eating healthy as well, too. So a lot of these snacks were homemade. But no matter what, I would come home and I would just go to town. Like, I'm not talking I would just have one cookie or one chocolate almond butter bar. It would be like multiple chocolate almond butter bars, multiple cookies. And then I would go into like more of a like coconut clusters in almond milk and have that. And then I would have dried mangoes, and then I would go back to something sweet, like the more chocolate almond butter bars. Like, I just went to town. And I thought, like, how do people just have one? How do people just have one? How do people just have two? How do people just open up a box full of delicious sweets and have a few and like be totally fine, just like move on with their day? That wasn't the case for me. It would be like one turned into two, turned into three, turned into four. And same with other foods, like even almond butter. 1 tablespoon, I'm like, I wouldn't be able to just have 1 tablespoon. It was like I would go to town with almond butter. Or even, fresh bread. Like, there were so many foods I honestly thought like I'd never be able to control myself around. Protein bars. I would never be able to just have 1 protein bar. Sometimes I would have 3 or 4 protein bars in one sitting. And I thought to myself, I'm just never going to have control around these foods. And so what ended up happening was I said to myself, you're out of control with food right now. Are you allowing yourself to have these foods? And all of the foods that I would be overdoing it with, I actually never allowed myself to enjoy them. The only time I would be having the chocolate almond butter bars was when I was feeling a strong urge and I was binging. The only time that I would be having all of the dried mangoes was when I already said F it. And I went out for lunch and then, well, since I already went out for lunch, pull out the dried mangoes. I don't normally eat them, so let's go to town. And I started to notice this pattern of like, the only time that I'm having these foods is really when I'm feeling impulsive. So number one, I'm not even enjoying it because let's be really freaking honest. If you are binging on sweets, if you are overdoing it, you're not enjoying it, right? Like you can't even taste it. But also I'm like, it would be so much better if I allowed myself to have these foods so that I wouldn't end up going crazy on them later on. And so I tried out this method, even though it was so scary, even though it was literally terrifying, because I'm like, okay, I'm binging. And what I mean, defining a binge is like, you feel just out of control. Like it's like 1 turns into 2, turns into 3. You just feel out of control. There's guilt, there's shame. It doesn't even feel like you eating. And so I was recognizing like it was scary for me to say, Lorna, you're binging on all these sweets in the evening. You should allow yourself to have them during the day. I'm like, that didn't make logical sense. It didn't make logical sense to allow myself to have the chocolate almond butter bars during the day because I'm like, well, I'm going to go home and eat more of them. So that's not healthy. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Why would I do that? If I feel like I can't have just a few dried mangoes, why am I going to allow myself to eat them? But I recognized that by doing the opposite, by not allowing myself to have them throughout the day, I would just eat them in the evening. The foods that you don't allow yourself to have are the foods that you go to town with. It's happened for every single one of my clients. I had a client, chocolate cake was her thing. And I said, well, do you allow yourself to enjoy it? She's like, no, because I binge on it. So I'm trying to not eat it. And I said, that's exactly why you're binging on the chocolate cake. I had a client that fresh bread was her thing. She's like, as soon as I go to the bakery and I buy fresh bread, like 1-2 slices isn't enough. Like I just eat like so much. I've had a coach before for fitness. I think I need a binge coach. Yes, send me a message on Instagram. Or you can message me here on TikTok. So this client with the fresh bread, I was like, well, do you allow yourself to just like have some bread when you want it? She's like, no, I can't. I can't just allow myself to have it because then I'm going to lose control. And you guys, conquering binge eating is about doing the scary thing, regaining your control back with food. I talk about rewiring your brain. It's literally doing the opposite of what you're used to. And so with this client with chocolate cake, she started, now don't get my words twisted. I'm not saying that she just started eating chocolate cake every single day. No. When she was craving it, she would allow herself to have some without guilt. And because she allowed herself to have some and actually enjoy it, like slow down, she's not in an impulsive state. She's not waiting for an urge to come on to then eat chocolate cake, because then of course you're going to spiral out of control. But instead, when she was in a calm setting and she felt like, you know what, I want some chocolate cake, she would have some. And the craziest thing started to happen. She said to me, Lorna, because I can actually taste the chocolate cake, it's actually really sweet. She couldn't even finish a slice. She's like, oh, this is really sweet. She lost interest in her chocolate cake. Now, yeah, she still has chocolate cake to this day, like here and there. She never binges it on it anymore. And in fact, a lot of the time she's like, I can't even finish a slice. She's like, I didn't realize how sweet it was. When you're binge eating, when you are in this impulsive state, you cannot taste it. You're not eating because of the taste. You're eating because of what the feeling that binge eating gives you. And so because she actually started allowing herself to enjoy it when she was craving it, she started to recognize it's actually really sweet. My client with the bread example, instead of waiting until she was super impulsive to go buy a loaf of bread and go to town on it, she would allow herself, you know what, I'm going to have some avocado toast in the morning, or I'm going to have some fresh bread with some peanut butter and some banana slices, and then she felt satisfied. One of my clients, for her, it was ice cream. She's like, Lorna, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. Ice cream is a trigger food for me. I always emotionally eat on it when the kids go to bed. And I said, don't worry, I'll help you rewire your brain so that ice cream gets taken off the pedestal. And you know what's happened for her? Our conversations inside of our coaching was, Lorna, I don't have the desire to have ice cream anymore. And she said, but I want to want it. And now this is the more nuanced conversation. She said to me, I don't have any desire to have ice cream, but it's a weird feeling because I want to want it. This happens to so many of my clients. You had a food, like this client, ice cream, that used to be a massive trigger for you. You would always overeat it, always binge on it. And then, because you allowed yourself to have it, you got to a point where you no longer want it anymore. But you feel this weird feeling inside of you where you're like, but I want to want it. Like I miss it. I'm not craving it. I don't even have the urge to binge on it, but I want to want it. This is a very nuanced conversation. These are some of the conversations I have with my higher level clients. And I said, this is completely normal. When you're so used to having a food on a pedestal, and it's a special food, and you've associated ice cream with binging when your kids go to bed, when your kids go to bed and you no longer have the urge to binge on it, to emotionally eat on ice cream, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like this emptiness of wait, what do I do? And this is where you have to normalize it. This is where you have to not freak out, because a lot of people will start freaking out. Like, am I doing something wrong? Like, this feels weird. And it's almost like you can't believe it. But you guys, this is the power of rewiring your brain. The foods you once binge on are no longer foods that you feel the desire to binge. Does it feel weird? Absolutely. Is it going to feel like this almost like weird, empty feeling of but I want to want it? Yes. But this is where I have conversations with my clients and I say, we have to normalize this. Because what you wanted was to stop being out of control with this food. And now you're no longer out of control with food and it just feels a little weird. Just like if you're so used to, binging in the evenings, and then you've rewired your brain and now you don't have urges to binge in the evening, it's like, but what do I do with my time? What do I do in the evenings? And it's like, so many of my clients will say to me, Lorna, I don't have the urge to binge anymore, but I want to. I don't have the desire to eat ice cream anymore, but I want it. And this is where you have to just normalize this feeling and say, I've rewired my brain. I'm no longer impulsive with food. This doesn't mean that you're never going to not want it. So the client with the ice cream example, she went months without any desire to have the ice cream. Not that she was trying to restrict herself or tell herself that she couldn't have the ice cream. She's like, I literally don't want it. But then she got to a point where, again, she wanted it again, but this time she wasn't emotionally eating it. It was like I could have a bowl and actually enjoy it, taste it. And then that's when it becomes easier for you to stop when you're full, stop when you're satisfied because you're tasting it, you're enjoying it. That's what happened for my client with the chocolate cake example. She wouldn't even be able to finish a slice because she's like, because I'm actually sitting down being present and I'm enjoying it, there's no guilt or shame or judgment. It's actually really sweet and I can't eat the whole thing. My client with the ice cream example, no desire to binge on it. When she's craving it, she'll have a bowl or two, but then move on because there's no urge. There's no out of control feeling. And the reason I wanted to bring this up was because even for myself, I have a sweet tooth. And I just made myself a snack and there was some chocolate. And I recognized, I'm like, the past few days, I actually haven't really been wanting chocolate that much. But I've normalized that. It's like you're going to have seasons where you might want more sweets than others. There might be periods of time where you're like, I don't really want anything sweet. But I don't want you to get in your head of wait, is something wrong? I haven't been craving anything sweet. You just have to recognize that you're rewiring your brain and you're taking foods off of a pedestal. You're becoming less impulsive with food. So it's actually normal to not want to binge on the foods that you once used to binge on. Instead of freaking out and waiting for the shoe to drop of this feels weird, am I doing something wrong? What's going on? You just have to normalize it. You have to normalize it and say, I'm just becoming less impulsive. I'm taking foods off of a pedestal. And that's actually a really exciting feeling, even though it feels weird, even though it feels wait, I have a big sweet tooth and I haven't been wanting ice cream. What's going on? I used to always have so many slices of bread and now I don't really feel like it. What's going on? And instead of freaking out, you have to normalize it. You have to normalize it because this is actually what a healthy relationship with food is all about. There's going to be times where you want chocolate and there's going to be times where you're like, meh. Just like one of my other clients, her mom brought her 2 different types of cookies. They were her favorite cookies. And she had them on her countertop for weeks before having them. And she was like, this kind of feels weird. This kind of feels weird because normally I would just eat them right away. But she's like, I wasn't craving them, so I'm not going to just eat them. And that's because she's rewired her brain. We've been working together for well over a year. And she's like, I'm just going to eat them when I'm craving it. That's normal. That's a healthy relationship with food. It's not like, oh, as soon as I get the cookies, I got to eat them. No, that's impulsive. The thing is that when I buy the food, I get triggered by, I end up binging on them. Well, that's because you still have urges. And once you rewire your brain and you no longer feel the urge to binge, they'll no longer be triggering. You also have to shift your relationship with them because if you're always seeing that food as this is a food I binge on, then you're always going to binge on that food. And that's another thing too. With my client with the ice cream example, I said, stop telling yourself that you emotionally eat ice cream. Because if you tell yourself, I always emotionally eat ice cream every single night, then that's going to be your reality. Instead, it's like, I can enjoy ice cream. I can trust myself with ice cream. I feel safe eating ice cream. And then that becomes your reality. You are so welcome, Mia. She said, I want to thank you for your content. It makes me feel more human. I see you. So you will get to a point where foods that you used to binge on are no longer like even really interesting for you. Like, I haven't had dried mangoes in so long, and I don't really have the desire to eat them. But that used to be a food that, like, if I had one, it would be 2, 3, 4. I would have the whole bag in like a day or two. My mom's chocolate almond butter bars. I'd eat so many in one sitting. And now I actually just went to my parents' house last week. She always has the most delicious sweets in her house because she's retired and she can just bake all the time. And I had like a few, but I'm like, okay, like that's enough. And this didn't just happen for me. You heard from my client with the chocolate cake example, with the bread example, with the ice cream example. But you have to be willing to lean into the fear to allow yourself to actually taste it, to enjoy it. If you always fear those foods, it's always going to be triggering. And when you lose interest, don't freak out. Don't be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. You've made peace with that food. You took that food off of a pedestal. You know, there's going to be seasons. Like I said, there are times where I'm like, I love my chocolate. I have dark chocolate very often. I love it. But it's true cravings. I don't have urges anymore. It's true cravings. So I have whatever I want and then I move on. That's it. And then there's some times where I'm like, I don't feel like chocolate. Like I don't feel like it. This is normal. This is a balanced relationship with food. If you're wanting something sweet every single night, if you're needing ice cream every single night, that's impulsive. What's normal is there's seasons, there's ebbs and there's flows. There's moments where you're like, I want some ice cream, and then there's moments where you don't want any. Just like going out for dinner, there are some nights, if I go out for dinner with my husband, there are some times I will get dessert and there are some times I won't. That's a healthy relationship with food. It's not every time I go out for dinner, I get dessert. And it's not every time I go out for dinner, I say no to dessert. That's not healthy. A normal, intuitive, balanced relationship with food is sometimes you get dessert, sometimes you don't. Depending on how you feel, depending on how full you are for dinner, right? And so do not freak out when food loses its interest. This is normal. This is part of the process. It's happened for myself. It's happened for so many of my clients. They're like, Lorna, it feels so weird because I don't feel the desire to like emotionally eat ice cream. And I said, yeah, the root and rewire process works. Rewiring your brain works. And they're like, but I want it. Yes, because it feels weird. When you've ingrained this habit of emotionally eating ice cream every single night, it's gonna feel weird when you don't want it. But instead of seeing it as like, what's wrong? Like, this feels weird. This feels strange. I just want you to familiarize yourself with this feeling of like, it's normal for me to not want the ice cream. And it's okay. I'm healing my relationship with food. I'm taking foods off of a pedestal. You have to normalize this feeling. You have to normalize and familiar yourself with it. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just making peace with the foods that once used to trigger you. And then maybe next week you'll want some ice cream. And then maybe next week you'll want some ice cream. Impulsive. Not when you're impulsive. Of course you're going to overdo it. Of course you're going to binge. Of course you're going to overeat. If you are only having the foods that are triggering for you when you're already impulsive, you're going to feel like I can't trust myself because you're eating it in times where you're already impulsive, aka when you're by yourself, aka in the evening. Of course you're going to lose control. Have it at a time where you're not impulsive. Like my client with the bread example, she would have it for breakfast. She never felt impulsive during breakfast, so she would have some bread with breakfast and just normalized it. And then she didn't feel the need to have it in times where she would normally feel impulsive. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is when you do lose interest in food and you don't feel the urge to binge or emotionally eat on these foods, instead of freaking out and being like, what's wrong? This feels weird. Oh my goodness. Of course. Say to yourself, of course. I'm rewiring my brain. I'm taking foods off of a pedestal and I'm being less impulsive. Rewiring your brain is about doing things differently. Rewiring your brain is about doing things differently, which means that you're going to have to lean into the fear. It's going to feel unfamiliar, but you have to make what's unfamiliar familiar. And what's familiar, unfamiliar. So what might be familiar to you is always emotionally eating ice cream every single night. And now you have to make that which is familiar, unfamiliar. And when you have periods of time where you're like, I don't really feel like ice cream, and it feels unfamiliar, you got to familiarize yourself with that feeling of like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have the urge to emotionally eat ice cream anymore. Okay, I'm going to normalize this feeling. I'm going to familiarize myself with this feeling. And this is how you fully rewire your brain, which I teach inside of the Root and Rewire membership. You can have food at home. You can. You can have food at home. I've seen this time and time again. People say, I can't bring the food in the house because if it's in the house, I'm going to binge on it. But that's because you haven't rewired your brain yet. That's because you haven't healed your relationship with those foods yet. That's because you still have urges. When you actually rewire your brain, you shift your relationship with these foods, just like my clients have done. You take those foods off of a pedestal. You allow yourself to enjoy them, not when you're impulsive. You make peace with those foods. You can have whatever foods you want in the house. My client with the chocolate cake, she allows herself to have chocolate cake when she wants, but she's like, half the time, I don't even want it. My client with the ice cream example, it's in her freezer. And all the time. She's like, I don't want it tonight. And she thought she would never be able to not emotionally eat ice cream. But it's possible when you rewire your brain. And this process is what I teach you inside of the Root and Rewire membership. If you're not inside yet, the Root and Rewire membership, get your booty inside. I teach you this entire process. This is what helped all of my clients take the foods off of a pedestal. No longer feel impulsive. Be able to have ice cream and chocolate and bread in their house and not even feel like I need to eat it. My client, she's like, I can't even try to emotionally eat ice cream anymore. She's like, I don't have the desire anymore. She'll have a bowl if she's craving it, but then that's it. This doesn't just happen for some people. It happens for the people that are willing to do this work, that are willing to learn from somebody who's gone through this. When you rewire your brain, food gets taken off of a pedestal. You no longer have these urges. So the Root and Rewire membership, it's 6 or 12 months. This is where you actually rewire your brain so you no longer feel an urge to binge. You get out of the restrict binge cycle. You make peace with food. Foods get taken off of a pedestal. The foods that you once used to binge on, you lose interest in that food. And this is where you actually get back to eating like a normal person again. One day you're going to wonder, like, I don't think I'll ever be able to just have a bowl of ice cream and like, that's it. And then there'll be days where it will actually happen for you and you're like, I just had a bowl of ice cream and I don't have any desire to have more. You're going to wonder like, I can't not control myself with chocolate cake. Like every time I have chocolate cake, I binge on it. And then you're going to have chocolate cake once you've rewired your brain. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is too sweet. So the Root and Rewire membership is everything you need. You learn how to rewire your brain out of these habitual cycles. You learn how to actually make peace with food so that you can have whatever foods you want in the house and have no desire to binge on them. You stop thinking about food 24/7, like, should I be eating this? Should I be eating that? You're part of our incredible badass community of other people who make you feel less alone. You're learning from me, someone who has past lived experience with binge eating that can show you the way. I've implemented this process. It's why I've stayed binge free for over 5 years now. And I'm walking you through this exact process. You can message me on my Instagram. Just message me membership. Message me membership on my Instagram, and I'll send you all the details. And now is the best time to join. When you join now, you're actually getting access to a program that's starting at the end of the month called Eliminate Your Urges, where I share with you how to not give in to your urges no matter how strong they feel. You're getting daily audios from me on how to not give in to your urges, no matter if you're home alone, if they're emotional urges, binge urges, overeating urges. It doesn't really matter what urge it is. You're going to know how to easily not give in. And then you're also going to get access to our binge-free holiday challenge that I run every single year. So you can actually have a holiday where you're present with your family, you're calm, you're relaxed, you're not anxious about the food. And those are just bonuses that you're getting for joining now. So message me membership if you want to join. This is honestly the best place to heal your relationship with food. It's the best place to learn this process. If you're like, I want to be that person that no longer binges on these food. Like, I want to make peace with food. I want to be able to keep chocolate in the house and forget that it's there. You'll learn that inside of the Root and Rewire membership. And you're going to feel so empowered by all the incredible people that are on this journey with you. You'll feel less alone. You'll feel like this empowered badass where it's like, I can easily not give in to my urges. You easily stop when you're full. When you lose interest in food, you're like, oh my goodness, you celebrate it. And it's just the best place on planet Earth. So message me membership and I'll send you all the details. I cannot wait to have you inside. The whole badass community is so excited to welcome you with open arms. This is your home. This is your sisterhood, a place where you finally feel seen. This is the place where you actually sustainably conquer binge eating for the rest of your life. This is not a quick fix. This is 6 or 12 months for the person who's really committed to doing this work. The woman that's like, I'm ready to work on my relationship with food and I just want nothing more than a peaceful, normal relationship with food. This is the place to join. So I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being here and I'll see you guys soon. Bye guys.